Low quality fans of a high quality Bruins team, welcome back. We're gonna do season grades. I gotta be real honest with you. Making this video, I gave myself some time. I thought it wouldn't be this tough. And as soon as I started making my list of players and going through grades, whoo, not great. Not great. The feelings rushed back. This week has been a fluctuation of excitement for next season, of prospect talk. And with every moment of excitement came a wave of despair, of disappointment, of embarrassment. I am getting dunked on. Past videos are getting comments. Like, I am getting absolutely dunked on. You gotta take your licks. You gotta do it. But the waves of frustration are hard to battle. And so I'm right there with you guys. I know a lot of you are just feeling gross. And to think 58 seconds would have been the difference. Just crazy. Just crazy to think about. But that's why we love hockey. And I am excited for next season. But right now, we're going to talk about this season and the grades. And I don't like doing separate grades for playoffs versus regular season. I really genuinely don't enjoy it. But there's no other way to do it this year. There's just no other way to do it. Because these are two different teams. Two different teams. Before that, let me say thank you to Wade for a wonderful Meth Bear jersey and to Joseph for a gorgeous Bobby Orr. Give me 1 second. The Bobby Orr from Joseph. Greatly appreciated. It's one of the, they did the vintage series kind of, yeah, you know. Anyway, looks great. This will be gracing our wall very soon. They will be hopefully staples in the new year. And this is the Meth Bear from Wade. 33 on the back. This is one of the beer league jerseys that his team wore to win the ship. Dude's a champion. Wade had some bragging rights this year. Good for you, Wade. Good for you. You're doing a lot better than the rest of us. But awesome. Appreciate it. Super. It makes everything a little more, tolerable for me because I got presents. Who doesn't love presents, right? I finally got the All-Star back for Bergie, which is exciting as well. And a little bit of Bruins news before we get started. You'll see timestamps below that will go over, the different tiers of players that I graded and how I broke that up. But before we get there, Matthew Poitras was signed to an ELC, an entry-level contract by the Boston Bruins. He was our second-round pick in 2022. He was one of my least favorite picks of that draft, and he has done nothing to prove me right. He has 95 points in the OHL this year with the Gulf Storm, 79 of which were assists. He has fantastic vision, decent skating ability, positioning is pretty good for not that big of a guy. There's a lot to like about what he's done. Now, the OHL is a high-scoring league. His numbers aren't something that you're exactly going to look at that and go, oh my God, he's an all-star. But he had a great season. He also had multiple suspensions. Slew-footing incidents, what are you going to do? He's a tenacious player, has Marchand's motor, but also Marchand's temper, or at least early career temper. Like to see him clean that up a little bit, but he oftentimes uses his positioning and getting low to force players off balance and be able to strip the puck from them or keep the puck. And when you're doing certain plays like that, sometimes your thought process can get fogged and you decide to go for the guy's skate. Stop the slew footing, bud. There's no excuses for that. All that being said, he has had a really good first year. His ELC will slide a year because he's not eligible for the AHL next year. He would either make the Boston Bruins or spend another year in the OHL, which, barring some sort of extreme strip down of talent, I know he plays center, and I know we're losing our top two centers potentially, but barring something unbelievably extreme, he will be playing the OHL next year as well. He is not touching NHL ice for a little while, but as far as first years go, he had about as good as one as you could ask for from a second-round pick, so something to be kind of excited about. This is a guy that we've talked about previously. I'm going to do a full prospect breakdown in the offseason, but this is a guy that although I didn't grade out super well during the draft and where he was drafted, he is somebody who had a good enough year to make you go, all right, maybe there's something there. Who knows? His ceiling is likely a middle six center. His absolute ceiling, we'll see what happens though. Let's get to these grades, shall we? The way we are grading, and this is very clear, please pay attention to this. An A is far and beyond expectations. You were brilliant, you were great, you were fantastic, and I did not assume you would be as good as you were. A C, because I mean B is between A and C, you can figure that one out. A C is you met expectations, which means a guy like Bergeron is being graded against his own expectations. So a guy like Nosek, who's on the fourth line, he could end up with a higher grade than Bergeron if he had been that much better than his expectations. Just want to be very clear about that. A C is not an insult. It's you did what we expected this year. All right, good. Glad we got that out of the way. I know different grading videos do it different. This is just the way I wanted to do it. An F is not only did you not meet expectations, but you were shockingly below what we wanted to see. You can imagine, for the regular season grades, not many people touched an F. For the postseason grades, well, let's just see what kind of mood I was in. I don't know. We'll see. So how do you start a player grades video? You start with the guys with the highest expectations. Your superstars, your stars, however you want to put it. And why not start with the leader of this team, the captain of this team, Patrice Bergeron? He had 58 points in 78 games. He played more games than I thought in hindsight. 27 goals, Selke favorite, fantastic defensively, really good offensively, led this team to 65 wins. How could he not be an A? It's because your expectations were basically already there. Bergeron was brilliant. And honestly, he's not going to get a C because he was still beyond what I expected. Coming into this season, 36 years old, I thought he would take a step back, or more of a step back, I guess you could say, because 58 points isn't exactly wow material from him. But as his career creeps towards its end, God, please let it not be the end for Bergeron. I think a solid B on this season. We expected him to be in the Selke conversation, if not the favorite. That's a clear expectation. 58 points in 78 games, honestly, with 27 goals, that's better than I expected. Truly better than I expected from Bergeron this year, because I just expected more of a step back. But he has shown once again, he is just too good for that old father time. The playoffs, he is one of the very few players who is going to get an incomplete grade, because playing with a herniated disc in his back, or so we're being told, I don't even know how you could play hockey with that kind of pain. And I know he's had, crazy to say, worse injuries and played through them. Again, that's insane to say out loud. But at the end of the day, he was not healthy enough to play. And in the 3 games he played, it was not a great result. I think an incomplete is fair, because I just don't even understand how you play at the world's highest level through that kind of pain. There's more and more coming out that make it crazy to me that he was even on the ice. But an incomplete grade for Bergeron in the playoffs, I simply don't think that it is fair to grade him on those 3 games that he probably shouldn't have been in. Not that he was terrible. Let's not act like he was an atrocious entity on the ice during those. Just simply wasn't right and wasn't ready. But let's move on to another guy. Brad Marchand, 67 points in 73 games, 21 goals. This one has the biggest but and might be the most controversial grade I can give, because did you ever feel like Marchand was up to his standard? Honestly. Did you ever feel during the regular season that he was up to his standard? Because I don't. And of course, he's returning from a brutal double hip surgery. But he never hit a point consistently in the season where I went, that's Marchand. And maybe there's other reasons for that, and maybe that's a daunting thing to talk about, because who knows what next season looks like. Maybe that surgery is the start of decline. Who knows? But I have a C- for Marchand. 67 points in 73 games. If you want to call me an idiot for this one, I'm not going to get upset at you. I just never felt like he was at the level that we are used to seeing him at, and his standard is so high, that it's not about the points, but it's about his effect on the game. And I don't think he hit the standard that he expects of himself or that we expect of him. So, tough season for him. A C- feels pretty fair to me because my expectations. Playoffs? A completely different animal. He was one of the few players to really take it to the Panthers on every shift. One of the few guys to not back down given any circumstance. I mean, he was great. 10 points in 7 games. Fantastic. 4 goals. I'm more than happy to give him a B+ on that. Because, yeah, did he blow my mind, raise it to a level where you would go, wow, Marchand, what the hell is that? No. But given what he had performed during the season and the way he came out, while people are turning over the puck left and right and can't string together 2 plays, and yet he consistently got the puck in deep, won battles, created scoring chances. That's a guy that surpassed my expectations for the playoffs. A B+. I thought he was really one of the few guys I could say is really, really, really good. We are about to have the exact reverse situation with Pastrnak. His season's an A+. Are you kidding me right now? 113 points. 81 goals. Oh my goodness. I got so excited. 61 goals in 82 games. Our first 60-goal scorer in literal decades. He was fantastic, even with his usual up and down style play, even with his turnovers. He was phenomenal through the large majority of the regular season. We know he gets streaky sometimes, and we have an 8-game span where we go, what the hell's wrong with Pasta? And then he rips off 8 games in a row where he scores 12 goals. Like, that's just how he plays. But he, not good in the playoffs. An A+ for the regular season. What a fucking season. Postseason, 5 goals, no assists in 7 games. 5 goals is nothing to sniff at in 7 games. Absolutely not. But are we really going to act like he was himself during the playoffs? Largely taken out of the play. Just didn't have any sort of consistency or chemistry with players he was playing with, which is odd. He was not his usual self, and I thought he really failed to elevate the players around him and to elevate his own game to meet the standard that the Panthers were bringing. I'm going to give him a D for his playoff performance because I just think that we had Tkachuk on one side of the ice, who's a superstar, who people argued with me when I said Tkachuk is a top 5 player in the league before the series and that Pasta is a top 10 to 15 guy. After this series, what do you think? Tkachuk was all around an unbelievable, unstoppable force, and Pastrnak disappeared for games of this series. He gets a D. It's not an F. Certainly isn't up to his standard, though. Our last star player on the list, Mr. Charles McAvoy. Charlie McAvoy was an interesting case, and I battled with this a lot. 52 points in 87 games, which is awesome, but he never truly grew into that power play quarterback that we expected. I don't think he really touched the whole Norris conversation that we really expect him to be in each year. And obviously the shoulder surgery that he had in the offseason did affect that. It did slow his beginning of the year, but I don't feel like he surpassed any expectations this year. I certainly don't feel like he didn't meet them game in and game out. I think there were some hopefuls looking for him to reach another level, so maybe your expectations were a little higher, but I felt like he did a fine job on a season where he was coming back from an injury and coming into a situation where the team was already doing really well. So I'm kind of good with a C. Met your expectations. We're right there. I battled between like a C-, a C+, without the Norris consideration, things like that. I don't know, maybe I'm being overly harsh on this one, but I feel like a C is right where he belongs. He met his expectations, nothing beyond that. In the playoffs, 5 assists in 7 games, no goals, never took over the game in the way that we would have expected. And although he did average 25 minutes a game, he simply wasn't good enough on either end of the ice to make a clear difference on the series, which is what we expect of him. I wrote down a D. As I talk about it more and I think about the series more, I think a C- is really where we sit. A C- makes sense to me because you look at the later half of that series and the time he was on the ice and what he was dealing with, and how players were turning it over around him and how he oftentimes had to be the recovery guy to prevent scoring chances, I think anything below a C- is a little unfair. So I'm actually going to change that from the list. It's a C- for me because he didn't take over the series a way you would largely expect your true number one defenseman, elite defenseman to do. A little harsh, sure, but the playoffs are harsh on everybody. So on to the next round, the top tier, your guys who have very high expectations, not to be your all-stars or your star players, but to be right below that level and to make a difference. It has 5 players on this level. The first one, and this is in no particular order as far as that goes, but DeBrusk. 50 points in 64 games played, lost a huge amount of the season a decent chunk of the season due to a leg injury in the Winter Classic where he scored 2 goals on a supposed broken leg, which is unbelievable. The dude's a warrior. I mean, what do you want? He wanted a trade, didn't get it, stuck around for the new coach, and then has 27 goals in a healthy season, might have had 35. The expectations were all over the place for this season. I did not expect him to be able to, and it's not about the points. It's not about the 50 points in 64 games. It's about him staying on the top line all season, being a staple on that line, helping that line be good, better than good most games, and allowing us to spread out scoring down the lineup. Pasternak on the second, Hall on the third. It was huge. It was a difference maker in the regular season. He was a difference maker. He gets an A, an absolute A. I thought he was way better than what I expected this year, and I'm really looking forward to what he can put together next year as well. Playoffs. 6 points in 7 games, fine. Kind of disappeared at times, much like that whole top line. His season was so good that I came into the series with pretty decent expectations, and although I don't think he completely failed them, I just think he was fine. So I'm just going to give him a C, and we'll keep walking with that one. He's a hard one for me to grade, honestly. But I didn't expect him to be a series changer, but I also didn't expect him to be a huge liability. I don't think he was either one of those. I thought he was right in the middle. Our next top tier kind of guy is Lindholm. Hampus Lindholm. Well, this was built off of, I mean, I wouldn't put him in the top tier previous to this season because he was like a secondary guy, a high-end defenseman, but a secondary guy. And the regular season was bountiful for the man, especially the start. He's probably 4th in Norris voting. We've seen the finalists, but you'd probably have him right there at number 4. 53 points in 80 games and a strong defender no matter what situation you would place him in. And he elevated Carlo's game, honestly. I thought Carlo had a really good year, and I know his mistakes are glaring and everyone gets upset at those, but a defensive defenseman, it's going to be like that. I thought he elevated the players around him. I thought he allowed other players to play more freely because of his defensive style, but also ability to move the puck. I think all in all, you look at this season, you call it an A. I think there's going to be plenty of A's to go around for the regular season. The playoffs? 7 games, 0 points, only 8 shots on net, completely rigid and scared to play the game that he played throughout the whole season. I don't know if he was dealing with an injury, but we started to speculate. He was a ghost on the ice at times. To the standard he set during the regular season, he was a complete negative factor in the playoffs. Negative might be a little harsh, but certainly not positive. An absolute F, an failing grade for what the playoffs were for Lindholm. Am I out on the player? Am I upset? I'm upset at the whole result. I'm not bashing Lindholm. But if you asked him about his last 7 games, he would say not good enough. Simply not good enough. He completely failed the expectations we had for him against a team that was really poor at defending. And, I mean, still was in the playoffs, by the way. We still scored plenty. I can't find a positive moment for him in the playoffs, really. Not a lot of them, at least. Toward the end of the series, it looked like he was waking up a little, but too little, too late, I guess. Just not good enough. That's an F. But luckily, our next guy, Taylor Hall, what a breath of fresh air. For the playoffs, at least. 36 points in 61 games played for the regular season. Talked a lot about him during pockets of the season as a guy who needs to step up, a guy who needs to get hot, things like that. He wasn't a problem by any means, but you had higher hopes for him, especially he ended up finding a home on the third line, which is great. The depth of scoring was awesome. But what are his expectations? What are your expectations for him? Were your expectations for him to be a third line guy that helps you tip the scale as far as depth scoring? Or were they a top 6 guy who scored consistently? Because mine were kind of closer to the top 6. And he couldn't make that happen. Honestly, the regular season, I'm giving him a C. He added great depth. He scored well enough. 36 points in 61 games is pretty good. But I thought higher of him than what I thought we got during the regular season. And then the playoffs came around. And are you fucking kidding me? Dude is an A+. It's an A+. Every shift, he brought it. And the fact we got performances like his, 5 goals, 3 assists in 7 games played largely on the third line and still lost a series is unbelievable. Hall was one of the very few players who brought his game to the next level for that series. And I will not do the injustice of acting like he wasn't one of the best players on the ice. He really, really was. A+. The guy was an absolute stud. And I respect the hell out of him for it. What a fucking series for the guy. We did not... He deserves to continue playing playoff hockey right now. Brutal for him, but wow. What a series. And again, it's not about the points. Just, he was all over the ice. He was making plays happen. Difference maker. Complete difference maker. David Krejci. Another top tier guy. 56 points in 70 games after taking a year off. I don't know about you, but that surpassed my expectations. I thought he'd be an okay 2C. And there were moments when it felt like he was actually dragging his line mates down a little bit. There were little pockets this season where, is he healthy? How's he feeling? Things like that. But all in all, as a whole, during the regular season, I thought he was much better than I expected. Didn't blow my mind, but better than I expected. I think that's a solid B. Playoffs? 4 points in 4 games, clearly not healthy. Came up huge in Game 7. I think those were 3 of his points. But the tough truth is, he simply wasn't good enough in the other 3 games. He wasn't. His line was absolutely caved when it comes to scoring chances when he was out there. And this is really where you sat there and went, is he holding Pasternak back? Is he holding Bertuzzi back? Is he holding Hall back when he was up there with him? Is he holding Zacha back when he was up there with him? Just not good enough. And was it the injury? I don't know. We haven't heard anything about that. Well, at least I haven't. So, tough playoff for him, especially with him showing up in Game 7, but not enough, and without more evidence as far as the injuries go of how he was really feeling. Clearly he was working through something, but I'm going to give him a D. Just simply not enough. Not enough. Our last top-tier kind of guy, and this is someone that maybe you're going to look at and argue with me about it, that's fine. Matt Grzelcyk. He's a top-pairing dude. He really is. He's right up there. Is he a Lindholm level? But he's right below. I don't care. But I thought he got a raw deal throughout this season. Him and McAvoy are a true top pairing line. They are. Their numbers say so. Their scoring says so. Everything about them says so. He didn't need to be replaced. And during the regular season, that was obvious to me. He had 26 points in 75 games. He was excellent puck mover. Yeah, a lot of... He usually had the pass that led to the pass that led to the pass that led to the goal. But getting the puck out of our zone, he was fantastic with. He led the league in plus minus. He was responsible defensively. Just an effective defender and puck mover through and through. A strong year for him where he had to bounce around the lineup. I'm giving him a B. I liked what he did this year. I know he's a controversial guy, but I really appreciate what he brought during the regular season. And in the postseason, he had 0 points in 4 games played as he bounced around the lineup. Now, I'm mad that we got Orlov. No. And maybe using him in that top pair and testing that out during the regular season, fine. But it became clear in the regular season that your best bet was to still have Matt with McAvoy and drop Orlov to the third pairing where you had a really effective pairing with Clifton. I don't know. Whatever. Oh, that's going to frustrate me again. The coaching staff screwed Grizz in the playoffs, and as he bounced around, his most effective moments were with McAvoy. He gets a D because he wasn't a difference maker that I'm used to him being, but he has... I feel like he really got screwed in that one and has a built-in excuse, which is the coaching just not trusting the guy. He was able to keep up with the play. And when you tossed him in third pairing moments with Forbort, who was getting bullied in speed and physicality in the playoffs, and Grizz has to be the one to make up for it, that's not fair. That's not fair. Playing his offside too? I don't know. That's just not fair to me. And when he played with McAvoy, I thought they were good together. I really did. But he gets a D because of his overall performance, which feels completely unfair. We'll call it a D+. How about that? I just think he has a built-in excuse. That's just me. That's just me. And with that, we'll move on to our next tier, which is your role players. Your guys who aren't studs, but they certainly belong in the lineup. They're not going to be game changers typically, but, you know, they're going to make the difference in some games. And I've got 6 names on this one, which probably should be 5, but we'll get there. Pavel Zacha. We're going to start going a little quicker with these guys. He gets a fucking A. Look, he's not as good as we're making him out to be. He simply is not. Is he a 2C on a championship team? I don't think so. But he had a really strong season. He had 57 points in 82 games played, 21 of which were goals. He's not a championship level 2C. He's not. But a utility guy that can play all over the lineup, can play wing, decent back check. His shot is lethal when it hits the net, which that ending of that sentence is really frustrating, I know, but really great trade, really great signing, I think. I think Zacha is going to be a guy that you like to move around the lineup and just know what you're getting from him. He's going to be streaky, but when he gets hot, he makes a difference. Good season by him. I'm giving him an A. He's way beyond what I expected from him, especially after watching tape with him with the Devils where it just felt like he was shy. He just wasn't confident in making plays or shooting the puck, and I felt like he gained that here, really. Playoffs, 6 points in 7 games. Wasn't the issue, wasn't the solution. Wish he hit the net more. What are you going to do? He was fine. C. He gets a C. He was fine. Charlie Coyle, 45 points, 16 goals. As a third-line player in 82 games. Yeah, pretty good. Fought for every inch of ice and elevated the game of those around him. He met expectations and exceeded them for the regular season. I'm very happy with a B for him. I thought he was stronger than I expected him to be. And he's another guy in the playoffs who wasn't the problem in the playoffs, but also wasn't the solution. Wasn't up to his standard, maybe. 2 points in 7 games. Didn't really see a lot from him. Had a harder time playing that possession game because the forecheck was late all the time. All the time through that series, the forecheck was late. He didn't get the support he needed, I felt. And when he was trying to make a play, he simply had no one to play the puck to until eventually 2 guys came over and crashed him off the puck. But at the end of the day, you're the center. You're supposed to drive that line. I felt like he could have done a little more. I'm giving him a C- for the playoffs. C-. That feels fair to me. And a line mate of his, or should have been a line mate of his in the playoffs, Trent Frederick. What a surprise. What a surprise. 31 points in 79 games, 17 goals scored. Portions of the season, it looked like he was going to be a true game changer. A guy who drove that third line. He had Hall and Coyle on his left, and he felt like the best player at moments, which was fantastic. Oftentimes on time for the forecheck, or be that second guy there to create havoc. Would go straight to the net, wasn't afraid of shooting. What else do you want from a bottom 6 guy? He surpassed my expectations a lot. I'm giving him a B+. I like his season a lot. And then you want to talk about a built-in excuse. Benching him in the playoffs was inconceivable, unbelievable, unforgivable. Was he brilliant towards the end of the season? No. But what he brings in physicality and forechecking ability and ferocity and energy in his shifts, and you're going to bench him against this Panthers team that was bringing it to you physically? Yeah, he had 0 points in 5 games. I'm not going to say he was some sort of stud out there. But you moved him to the 4th line. You bounced him around the lineup in general. You didn't put him in an advantageous situation. Like, yes, 0 points in 5 games, you get a D. You weren't good. You weren't good enough. You could have made a difference in the series, and you really didn't. But the amount that the coach showed that he didn't trust him, He bounced around a lot, put him in the fourth line, and he gets 9 minutes a game. I just didn't understand it when you had a line of Hall, Coyle, Freddie that you really liked in the regular season. I just didn't understand it. I don't appreciate it. I don't think this grade's super fair, but he was not the game changer that I thought he could be in the playoffs, so it's a D. It's a D for me. It's a D! Brandon Carlo. 75 games played, 16 points. It ain't about the offense, though. He was a true shutdown guy all year long with pockets of inconsistency. I'll give you that. Little pockets of it, frustrating moments. His mistakes, we've said this 1,000 times. When it's a defensive defenseman, mistakes end up in the back of the net, and so they're glaring. But I have a high opinion of Carlo, and I expected a lot from him this season. And a C seems really fair because my expectations were solid for him. And throughout the regular season, I thought he was a true shutdown guy. Did he blow my mind at any point? No, not really. And then the playoffs come around. 4 points in 7 games. That's pretty good, honestly, for a defensive defenseman. And a complete shutdown force. Was he also failing clearances and things of that nature? Sure, there were moments. But I thought Carlo was actually one of our best defenders in that entire series. I thought he was moving bodies. I thought he was taking away scoring chances. And he knew when to just get the puck out of dodge, bro. Just fucking get it off the stick and out of the zone. Something who I am watching this Panthers Maple Leaf series now and going, God, how did I not see this before? Do you know what the Panthers are excelling at right now? Not making a play out of their zone, simply getting it the fuck out of the way. Get it out of a danger area now. Don't worry about the next play. Get rid of it. Are they still getting scored on in bunches? Sure, why not? They're not good defensively. Their goaltending is not great. I mean, I don't know. I don't even remember how much Toronto scored. But in our series, they got scored on a bunch. But they also got the puck out as often as possible. And you know what? If I'm going to compare apples to apples, our defenseman didn't. But Carlo did. He would just smack the puck away. Again, he had his flaws. But as far as it goes, his comparison to the rest of the defenders in this series, I'm actually going to give him a B for playoff performance. I thought he was one of our best defenders. And I know a lot of people are going to argue with that. I liked it. Last 2 guys for our role players. Tomas Nosek, far better than I expected for the regular season. 18 points in 55 games, 59% from the dot. I wanted Nosek gone to start the season, but he played his role well and slightly exceeded my expectations, particularly with the situations you could put him for face-offs and his penalty killing. So we're going to give him a B-. In the playoffs, 2 points in 7 games, not the problem, not the solution. You get a C. You are exactly what we expected. Whatever. I'm not going to push that any farther. I don't know why I put him here. It was just kind of funny. Role players, Craig Smith. F. What a bullshit first half of the season. Glad you had a little success with Washington in the second half after the trade deadline. Good for you, buddy. I love this guy. I love Craig Smith. Didn't fit the current team. Complete failure for us to have to trade him because it really felt like in a wide open system he would excel as a third line depth scoring option. Total failure for him in the regular season, but I wanted to bring him up. Love the guy. Really do. Fringe of the lineup. Let's move on to... I got a bunch of players we're going to rock through so fast. So fast. One we're not going to go super quick on, though. Forbort. I think I put him here just to insult him, honestly. Is it fair to say he's a fringe of the lineup player? I don't know. 54 games played. Injuries. Started the season well enough. Didn't have high expectations for him, but no matter how you look at it, he simply didn't add to this lineup. He just detracted. Really bad with the puck on his stick. Really bad with clearances. Physicality wasn't there. Everyone wanted to talk about his physicality. He had over 100 hits. Good for him. But his physicality didn't create turnovers. He would hit a guy and the puck would go to the next guy. He just wasn't good enough. In any portion of the season where you're like, yes, this guy. Maybe early in the beginning where I really don't remember super well, but from Christmas on, just bad. And we talked about penalty killing. And we talked about physicality. And the penalty kill was fucking fine without him. Really was. 5-on-5, he was a complete liability. And offensively, a complete black hole. Couldn't get the puck out of our own zone half the time. The amount of turnovers he had in the defensive zone, absurd. He was bad. Just plain bad. In the playoffs, one of the few guys who had a positive plus-minus God, I don't even know how. But you watch all of his tape. Watch every shift he had in the playoffs. Turnover after turnover after turnover after turnover. Was our penalty kill just some otherworldly penalty kill? No, they continued the same fucking numbers with him on it. He was bad. He gets an F for both playoffs and for the regular season, which might not even be fair because my expectations for him weren't all that great anyway, but he is, to me, one of the biggest reasons we lost that series, and I'm more mad at the coaching staff than I am at Forbort, which the coaching staff is getting grades in this video too, at the very end. Skip around if you wanna, but fuck me. This guy was not good. And I said this in the last video, I never want to see him play in the Spoke B ever again. Ever again. The taste in my mouth from how this season ended, and is he a scapegoat? Maybe. Maybe mentally I'm just a fucking child and I need to point to someone and go, this guy. But to me, him being in the lineup is one of the biggest reasons that we are as frustrated and bummed out as we are. He played 7 games. 7 games in the playoffs and was bad in every single one of them. Every single one. Ugh. Anyway, let's move on to Connor Clifton, who gets an A for his regular season. You go, buddy. Seriously. He was a 7th D that locked in the 3rd right defenseman slot. He gets stuck with Forbort more often than not, but makes it work. 23 points in 78 games, just a tenacious physical presence. Was fun to watch, adds offensively every now and again. I'm pumped to see him get another contract this year. It's going to be with a different team, unfortunately, but hey, it's something. Just a really good season from a guy that you weren't sure was even going to stick in the lineup. We thought Zaboral might pass him. We thought Strawman might be the guy. Riley might be the guy. And Clifton just locked it down. I am really, really excited for him. Maybe he gets some top 4 minutes somewhere. Maybe he shows out a little bit, but really good season for him. Really good. And then 3 games played in the playoffs. Not a great situation with how he was deployed, but Game 6 was a complete disaster. He gets a D. He gets a D. The other 2 games weren't that bad. Game 6 was a disaster for him. He gets a D. D minus. Fuck it. D minus. That game was so bad. So bad. What a bummer. What a bummer. Zaboral, you're a fringe of the lineup guy. Never could make it in the lineup consistently. He gets an F on the season. This was more about, were the expectations he would be a top 4 guy? No, but we were excited about him. We thought he could earn a slot or at least push for more games. Not good enough. He failed this season, unfortunately. These games, these grades are not indicative of what I feel about the player overall. It's about how this season turned out, and not good enough from him. Lauko and Greer, more fringe of the lineup guys. Regular season was exactly where we expected. These guys battled for games. They swapped back and forth in and out of the lineup. They brought energy. Their regular season was a C. In the playoffs, Lauko won the spot and did fine, I guess, and Greer did not. So I'm going to give a C plus to Lauko and a C minus, probably a D for Greer because he couldn't get in the lineup at all. If there was some sort of injury stuff that I am unaware of or forgetting about right now, a lot of information going around, maybe that grade should very well change, but definitely Greer is disappointed that he couldn't make it into this lineup, and Lauko just staying in the lineup is, pretty good for him, man, pretty good. Foligno, another fringe of the lineup guy. Look, my expectations for him were cannon fodder, just complete. I'm gonna hate this guy all year long. He was a black hole last year, just didn't enjoy any time he was on the ice. And then 26 points in 60 games played, 10 goals. When healthy, a strong defensive presence in the bottom 6 who still got the puck up ice, got it deep. Give him a B+. If he continued his play from early in the year, continued it throughout, that would be an A. Didn't quite blow me out of the water with how the end of the season went, but yeah, certainly far better than expected. And I'm going to do the same grade for the playoffs. One of the few consistent guys in the lineup that gave everything in every shift. Did I think it was great? No, but man, he worked his ass off. I didn't love him being in the lineup some games, but definitely better than what I expected. Definitely better than what I expected. So B+ for you, buddy, all around. Good job. Mike Riley. D, right? He probably wanted to make the lineup. Couldn't get in there. We had a deep defensive core. He only made it into 10 games this year. Maybe this should be an F, but that feels unfair to him because he was never like a top 6 guy with who we had. Unless they finally moved on from Forbort. It's tough. The coaching really played a huge role in this one, so I'm just going to give him a D. And it's a year lost for Riley, no matter how you look at it, for the player, for the man. So I'm sure he's disappointed with it. He's sure he's asking for more trades. He didn't handle it like a pro throughout. He was really frustrated, clearly. There were many reports about that, but I get it. That competitive drive, that fire. I'm not going to sit here and crap on the guy for it. I'd be upset too. Mark McLaughlin, an interesting one. 2 games played, never really forced the issue. That's an F for him. That's an F. I mean, again, it's not a reflection of who the player is or anything like that, but his expectation was to be battling for those Lauko Greer spots, and he could not come through. Couldn't come through. Wagner, thought it'd be fun to bring him up. C. He got 1 game. He was depth, but he was a complete pro throughout. Just a C. You did your job, buddy. Strawman, C. He was depth, 8 games played. Heard rumblings. He was upset as well, but I feel like he kind of knew the score when he came in, so same thing for him. Studnicka, depending on what your expectations were this year, the grade changes a lot. Some of you would give him an A just for being a trade piece and getting 2 pieces back, Mierenberg and DiPietro. Some, an F for not getting into the lineup. 1 game played, and he was traded. R.I.P. I guess he gets a D. I mean, I thought we'd see him make a push for the Lauko Greer spot, but he did not. But he does get traded and plays NHL minutes in Vancouver, so we'll give him a D. Let's give him a D! Let's do it. Oscar Steen. Sorry, Abby. That's an F for the boy. Bummer, man. He'll fight for that spot next year as well. Lauko, a Greer spot. Although Lauko looks like he'll probably make the team out of camp in a lower role, but his expectations were to be in this lineup for at least a good amount of games this year, and he simply couldn't make that happen. So that's an F. That's a failed season for him. I don't think there's going to be too many arguments on that. Again, not a reflection of him or his game, but more so what success he had this season, and there was none, unfortunately. Shall we talk about goalies, my friends? Let's talk about goalies a little bit. Ullmark, regular season, gets an A+. A .938 save percentage, league leading in wins, save percentage, and goals allowed average. A favorite for the Vezina. Fantastic season for him. Postseason, hard to say. We had 1 report about an injury. I believe it was Kevin Weeks, who said he had a debilitating injury, making it very difficult for him to move. But the fact of the matter is he had an .896 save percentage, allowed 20 goals through 6 games, and he simply crumbled in the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row. Now, if the report is confirmed by anyone in the organization that he had a debilitating injury and could not move, then this is an incomplete. But based on the numbers and his performance, he gets an F, and I don't know what else you'd want me to do there. It might be a completely unfair situation, but for playoffs, that's an F. For regular season, A+, baby! Great job! And Swayman gets a, of course, for the backup, a league's best backup, a .920 save percentage, 24 wins in 37 games. Really got hot towards the end in moments, but came in cold in the Game 7. He gets a C. What were you expecting of him in Game 7? Hadn't played in 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm sure he wants one of those saves back, but who wouldn't? If your expectations were a brilliant game from him after 2 weeks off in the biggest game of the year, the most pressure you could possibly have on you, I don't know what to tell you. He gets a C for his 1 game of playoff performance in Game 7 of a historic collapse. That's the coaching staff right there, not him. Kincaid, an F for being completely baffled that he wasn't getting playing time over Swayman, which led to his trade. Buddy, you were depth. What did you think was happening here with the signing? I get the competitive spirit and thinking you're better than you are. Trust me, I get that. But there's only so much you can really ask of the coaching staff there. You got signed to be a depth piece, and our goalies didn't get injured. I don't know what you want, so you get an F. The trade additions, you'll notice that they were separate tiers, I guess. Didn't really know how to tier them because they got brought in halfway through the season. Orlov was awesome. 17 points in 23 games in the regular season. A. Absolute A. He moves the needle in games. He moves the puck, lays the body. I wish we could keep him. Very unlikely that we keep him. Extremely unlikely. But I really, just regular season, way better than I thought he would be. The postseason. 8 assists in 7 games is good. He brought it. He brought it, and although he had dips in play during the playoffs, much like our whole defensive core, he still gets a B in my book. He bounced around the lineup, still was a difference maker. He holds the puck too long at times. I get that. And it certainly didn't help against a sturdy Panthers forecheck. But at the end of the day, when you're moving around when you're moving around the lineup, you're trying to make a play out of the zone. They kept talking about making plays out of the zone. I don't know. It felt like his play was really strong. He had a couple hiccups, but I think he's one of the few defensemen I could look at and be like, that's a B-worthy performance. I think you were pretty good for my expectations of him. Garnett Hathaway, I would give him a C for both regular season and playoffs. 6 points in 25 games through the regular season, 1 point in 7 games in the playoffs. He was brought in to be a physical presence, only got about 9 minutes a game in the playoffs, so don't know what you're really supposed to do with that amount of time, but he was fine for what he was. It's a damn shame we didn't get to see him play more games in the Spoke B. Hard to see him getting re-signed because he's probably looking for a little bump in pay that we don't have available. I kind of saved the best for last, though. Tyler Bertuzzi. 16 points in 21 games. Needed time to get the chemistry, the adjustment, everything like that in the regular season. And he was really, really good. I mean, keeping him would be a huge boost to next year. And I thought he was really good in the regular season. He was a B, right? Like just a guy, wow, this guy's even better than I thought. Real difference maker in games. Gets into the dirty areas, tenacity, takes the hits to make plays. And then the playoffs roll around. And he was the performer of the playoffs for us. He had 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points total in 7 games played. He was a difference maker in front of the net, on the back check, through the neutral zone, playmaker offensively. This guy brought every element you want on a second line role. And again, to get that kind of performance from him and then not move on, crazy. Just crazy. Crazy. He was great. He gets an A fucking plus in the playoffs for me. I cannot believe that performance went to waste. He was awesome, and I do hope we find a way to re-sign him. I really do. And lastly, the last tier is the coaches and management, and we're going to talk about 3 guys. We're going to talk about 3 guys. 3 guys that I feel like should be talked about. The first one is Goalie Bob. Goalie Bob is our goaltending coach. And he's fantastic. One of the best in the league. I trust him to do his job more than I trust anybody on the planet to do theirs. I think he's great. And he was relied on heavily, according to Montgomery, throughout the season and through the playoffs. I don't care if he was the one saying play Olmark while Olmark looked the way he did. I don't care. I really don't. Because that's the head coach's decision as he stands there behind the bench watching what we watched. I really don't. Goalie Bob created the best tandem in the league for this season. He had Olmark turn into a Vezina candidate goaltender, maybe the Vezina winner, under his watch from seasons of being good but not great with other teams. And Swayman continues his path of growth and excellence. So, yeah, I'm going to say Goalie Bob gets an A for his performance this year. And Don Sweeney, Monty's going to go last. Don Sweeney, this is what he did this season. He got Bertuzzi for a top 10 protected 2024 first-round pick and a 2025 fourth-rounder. He got Shane Bowers for Keith Kincaid. That's a nothing thing to me. Orlov and Hathaway for a 2023 first, 2024 third, 2025 second, and a 2023 fifth. Studnicka was sent out so that we could get Mierenberg and DiPietro, more prospects. Zacha was extended 4 years, $4.75 million. I think that's a really good deal, especially in 2 years. Pasternak, 8 years, $11.25 million. We knew Pasternak was going to get paid. Love that we were able to re-sign him. He gets a fucking A for this season. He did his job. You can have your gripes about the salary cap. You can have your opinions about why this team lost. Doesn't matter. He had Bergeron and Krejci coming back, and he said, we are going for it. If you had Bergeron and Krejci coming back and then blew it up, unconscionable. Why do I keep trying to use that word? Unforgivable. If you blew it up while Bergeron and Krejci were here, what are you doing? Unless they asked to go compete for a team because we were floundering 20 games in. Fine, but we weren't. And you added. And you had to give up assets, but it's not like you got taken for a ride in any of your trades. You gave up assets to make this team as good as you could possibly make it. You gave this team every chance to win the cup. And the way it ended, sure, you could look at that and go, shit GM, whatever. You could look at the draft, whatever you want. This is about this year. I thought he did everything in his book to try to make this team a champion. And didn't hesitate. And we're not sitting here talking about Sweeney not doing his job and not committing to truly winning a cup. Because he did commit to winning a cup. When he brought Bergeron back, he went, here we go. It's all or nothing this year. And guess what? We landed on nothing. And that sucks. But he did his job. You can slander him for any reason you want. But to me, this year, Don Sweeney gets an A. And trust me, that was not last year's grade for him. Jim Montgomery. I had concerns about Jim Montgomery midway through the season as he talked about being reliant on leadership in the locker room when there were little dips in play. And he made it obvious in damn near every interview how much he leaned on the player leadership. And in the regular season, 65 wins, it's crazy to say not an A, but I'll give it B+. Because regardless how it shook out behind closed doors, the regular season was a massive success, and he deserves some of that credit. But for how often he talked about relying on Goalie Bob, Bergeron, Foligno, Carlo, how often he talked about those, Marchand, I can't give him an A, because this was a very much a split effort. But a B+ seems more than fair. And the playoffs. I'd give a Z if it was possible. Never have I seen a coach so willingly fuck with winning formulas and overthink decisions as I did Jim Montgomery through a 7-game stretch. He let this team down in a massive way, and I do not care about what you can bring to me to argue it. I cannot find a reason that I would go, good job, Jimmy, Monty, whatever. He is the biggest reason we lost this series. Full stop. Playing forward through 7 games, nuts. Scrambling the lineups in game 5. Was that the reason we lost that game? No, it made no sense. Swapping players in and out, benching Frederick, not having guys ready to play. That's another thing. You want to talk about all of the X's and O's that go into coaching. How about having a team be so nervous and so scrambled through portions of these games? That's on the coach. You could talk about the players. Absolutely, we will judge the players. But the coach's job is to have his team ready to play. A team locked in. He gets an F. He gets an F-. A horrendous 2-week stretch of coaching. After a 3-1 lead, too. You have a 3-1 lead. You're playing guys with injuries. You're not... There's a lot of controversy about the goaltending. Swapping lineups for no damn reason. And I know we're 58 seconds and a good bounce away from the conversation being, well, that was a really bad first series for Jim. Let's see what he can do in the second series. It's not nearly as harsh, I'm sure. But the way I see it, we had a 65-game season go up in flames largely because of the decisions that he made, particularly towards the end of the regular season when he continued to play full lineups of people. We were not rested in that series. Bergeron being injured late. And I know there's talk about, well, he wanted to play in Montreal. I haven't seen a single actual report of that, by the way. And I know his dad has cancer, and maybe he did want to play in front of him, and that would be a good enough reason for me to just go, absolutely, man. Yep. Bergeron wanted to play. It might be his last season. That was an important game for his dad. No complaints. I just haven't seen a single report from anybody involved with the team that that's actually true. I haven't seen anything. From what I heard and what we've all been told, it was a tune-up game. The players wanted another tune-up game. That didn't work. I don't know. If you're going to let the players run the team, why is there a coach? I'm disappointed. I'm taking a lot of it out on Monty. But he was atrocious for this 7-game series. And I have yet to find anyone who's willing to argue with me about that. The lowest grade possible. That's what Monty gets for the playoffs. Embarrassing. But hey, those are the season grades. Officially, we put the season behind us. We are going to be talking about prospects, about the draft. Not a lot of picks in the draft, but the prospects. We're going to talk about free agent ideas. We're going to talk about extensions for current players. Where will Bergeron and Krejci end up? What is next for this team? There's plenty to be excited about. It's just hard right now because the disappointment hasn't gone away. And that's just the way it goes. But anyway, love you guys. Thank you for making this at least a little bit easier than it was expected to be after this kind of collapse. But I appreciate you, and you will see me again very soon. And if you have any ideas for future videos that you want to see, you let me know. All right, go Bees. Go Bees!